To what would you give each moment in a day if you knew that you only get 4 unique and different days to shine? It is such an arbitrary number, 4 to be sure. But the parameters are set. You know the day of your execution or of your deliverance. This is a trial by combat. It's a day to define you, a day to test you, a day where all the torturous hours of training come together, where it's you, your gun, your preparation, your teammates, and your tenacity on display, dissected by your enemies, with your skill, your will to win, weighed and measured. It is your chance to prove to the world that in this small slice of place and time, that you above all others are to be remembered, to be respected. In the sport of paintball, it will come down to Sunday, the holy day, where you get to earn your place in the game. And in 2021, you get 4 of these. So this is the story of many moments, but of 1 year of what happens on 4 Sundays.
So hard, they have to, they know it, right? Smart fucking paintball.
Malice is just saving the day again, and Malice gets the crossfield shot as well.
Guys couldn't make the corner like I was as consistent.
They get Constantine Fedorov back. They have Todd Martinez as the coach. Randy Smith is intent on building a championship team.
I got the chills, and I was like, we're going to win this tournament.
Pressure's all on them because they're number 1 team. We're the 20th place team.
Level undefeated, the number 1 seed in their division.
They have everything to lose, and we have nothing to lose.
No one can touch Dynasty here. That was a complete masterclass.
You go to bed dreaming you get to play Impact on Sunday and send them home. Then you dream you get to play Houston Heat. Who's the other Titan? Dynasty. There's no better feeling than going up against the big Titans.
Welcome to Go Sports Live. I'm Matty Marshall. Stoked to have one of the legends in our game here, winner with San Diego Dynasty at the first NXL event of the season, Archie Montemayor, gracing us with his presence. We got a lot to talk about here, Archie, but just everyone real quick, mark your calendars. We got some stuff coming up. We got the second NXL event. It's going to be going down April 29th to May 1st. It's the Texas Open. And as it stands right now, I believe there's going to be 16 of the 20 pro teams there, some top divisional teams. It's going to be a really fun event to definitely to watch and to see, especially with all these crazy stories. Archie and I are going to be diving into a lot of these crazy stories, Dynasty being the most important of them all as it currently stands. And then also we have the streamer showcase that's going to be brought to you by TransLabs. That's going down this Saturday as we're going to be doing some gaming stuff, some Call of Duty, and that's the first one was awesome. So, and Rocky Knuth won the solo round. So, and we got Tyler Humphreys in there. We got Corey Hall. We got Ronnie Dizon. And then a bunch of badass streamers. So it's gonna be a fun Saturday here. So Archie, let's jump into it. First of all, massive congratulations, dude, taking the win with Dynasty. You know, your first event, kind of back with the team. I know you guessed it with Dynasty, or not guessed it, but you were on the squad years and years ago. But then and we had a show, and if anyone hasn't seen it, we did a long discussion about Archie's motivation and where his head's at right now, all these years into his career. So if you haven't seen that, definitely go back and check that. But yeah, man, I mean, how are you feeling right now? I mean, obviously you gotta be on cloud 9, right?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, I feel great. I think this offseason was probably the most interesting offseason of my career at this point. And, it's definitely like felt like there was a lot of emotion and a lot of kind of like feelings and emotions to resolve, from the past few seasons, or certainly, or at least my past few seasons. And regardless of the result, I was feeling like I was in a really great situation and really happy and really motivated and totally grateful as well. It's been a really great move for me. And that, again, that is really before the result of the tournament. I knew it early on, so it was just really inspiring and really fulfilling, kind of being in this team. I'm really, really grateful for the guys and the way the organization runs itself, and there's just so much good magic going on, and to be a part of it is really, really cool and unique and special. So and then obviously we won, so it's like the cherry on top, or like a really extra juicy, sweet, yummy cherry. So yeah, anyways, it's been a great spring so far, and Actually, the weekend after the event was my birthday and my partner's birthday, so we celebrated really, really nicely. And yeah, just in general, just kind of riding high.
So talk to me a little, because when we talked last, I thought that some of the most insightful parts. I always love touching base with you because you shoot it pretty straight, man. You don't really pull a lot of punches with your opinions on things, and I appreciate that. You're honest about where your head's at, and I thought that one of the most interesting parts about that, everyone's on a different part of their quest, a different chapter of their book, whatever metaphor you want to use. But you were pretty honest about where your head was at the time, based on what you needed to, motivate you to kind of finish your career out here. I mean, you're still, as far as your age is concerned, I mean, yeah, you're not a spring chicken, but you're not an old man. And I mean, you're kind of still in the prime. And if you look at what Dynasty's done, proving, some of these guys are now the core of the team is 40 and still out there putting up some of the best performance. I've been watching these dudes play since they were 15, 16 years old. And they're better now in a lot of respects than they were and in their early 20s, even when they had 5 years as top level paintball players. So, with your personal trajectory and how much work you put in on these different high level teams, guesting, traveling all over the world, playing on super teams and all-star squads and Team USA, etc. I could sit here and read your accolades off for an hour, but but you were really honest about where your motivation was and trying to, give yourself like a really positive and fertile mental ground in which to transcend and move forward in your career. Now that you're, one event in, obviously super successful, but the vibe on the team, how it's been working. I mean, and then I do want to talk about, which we'll get into in a little bit, the fact that you did have to play, a bunch of points. It's a stacked team with Blake going down, some repositioning. So we'll get to that in a bit, but just to kind of start out, since it has been a little bit since we had talked about that motivation and why you want to continue to play paintball, what your goals are, the move to Dynasty. Again, everyone can go back and rewatch that show. We don't have to cross over that river again too much. But since we are here,
Right.
Probably, a little bit after that last convo and after this big win, is it kind of the same for you? I mean, is it kind of like a little bit of a justification, or I mean, just where's your head at on the motivation side of things? Like, are you super pumped to be playing right now? Seems like
Dude,
it.
I'm as motivated as probably, well, maybe not ever, but it's in my perception, I'm as motivated as I've ever been. It's hard to say whether or not that's actually true or not, but that's certainly the way I'm perceiving it right now. I'm very looking forward to the rest of the season. I'm looking forward to the next several years of playing. I'm really honestly in a very straight and narrow kind of path towards trying to do what I can do to be better, and that's usually a good place for anybody to be in, right? So yeah, it's like I feel like right now I'm very carefully and strategically drawing, back the bow, and yeah, I'm looking forward to getting to the point where I feel like I don't got to draw back so much. I'm just gonna but yeah, so just I feel super clear, super motivated. I know I've said that a lot, but that's really how I feel, and I'm really happy and grateful, and looking forward to the rest of the season. Obviously, I think this is such a unique and special team, and the guys, the ownership party and the leaders on the team have done just such an incredible job of steering this team for like long-term success, and having been a part of building a team and understanding the kind of ins and outs of what it takes and how to deal with, like, what are you going to do right now to be better, and what are you going to do in the long term, and do your decisions kind of go towards one and hurt the other, right? Sometimes they do, and just on the outside looking in, and certainly being just pretty much a player with some input, but not being so much a part of the team dynamic and how things are done and all the decisions that are a part of that process. It's really cool to sit back and watch these guys and obviously there's no way to say it other than watch these masters of this, do their thing and really kind of sit back and enjoy that, yeah, humbling, right? And yeah, it's just been really incredible.
And because you have so many irons in the fire. I mean, I've known you for a long time now, but I mean, you run businesses. You got I want to talk to you about the project stuff as well too, the creative process behind that. You got a drop coming up here pretty soon, and I just think that's a really cool thing. But that's constantly one of the things that everyone that I've talked to that's been doing this at a long time at every level, when you start kind of broing out over beers and just hanging out and kicking it with people, start discussing, what's going on in their life. A lot of people, they got kids, they got work and family stuff going, whatever. There's all these things that will take away from your focus of trying to do paintball. And I'm like, yeah, you're a pro paintball player. You do get compensated for this, but it's just one of many parts of your personality and one of many facets of your life. And so to have that very, a very specific motive in your mind, like a very, like the thought that's going to propel you forward, I think that's a really important thing. So kind of before we get into talk a little bit, because like I said, we got kind of a lot to talk about tonight / today, because I do want to get your thoughts on some of the stuff that's going on in the league right now as we're just kicking off the season. But, kind of staying on that, working with the Dynasty guys, were there any moments at this event, again, if for people that are unaware, you had been on Dynasty long ago, but the team is drastically different. The sport is, like what events we're playing. And I mean, yeah, paintball is, we're still shooting paintballs in anger at each other. But other than that, there's a lot that does change. So now you're back with the Dynasty guys after, helping basically turn X Factor into a household name for paintball and help make that team super famous. But now coming back to Dynasty, were there any moments where you were like, damn, that was really cool, or that was a cool insight, or that huddle speech was sweet, or this meeting was great? I mean, just a little insight into how the sausage is made for a win like that, third win in a row.
How
for
the
Dynasty.
sausage is made. Yeah, I like that. I would say very early on, I could tell that, my first iteration on the team was, the team wasn't in its prime, I will say that. And at the same time, I was like a shell of the player, or certainly I was like the shell of the understanding of paintball that I have now. Right. And, I think I maximized my time on the team at that moment, which was essentially like a year and a half, just shy of 2 years, and really soaked up as much as I could from, essentially the Masters. And I really went there with that intent. I didn't think it was going to be a permanent situation for me, but I went there to try to soak up and learn as much as I could from these guys. And at the same time, like, I know for sure I took what I took and ran with it and really tried to develop every aspect of my game. And I'm really proud of that. But on top of that, in being on the team now, I can also realize that all those guys did very much the same, and like seeing the way, like Alex is totally, kind of in a deep and meaningful awareness of his role and the way he kind of inspires and is around kind of like energizes the team. It's really quite fascinating for me to see it, because he's like so masterful at it. And I would argue that, it's super cool to see the way those guys have developed, because I haven't been in the inner workings of the team and in the sense to really see that. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm still kind of on cloud nine in the sense that I'm still really in awe of the way that the guys run the team. It's really masterful and kind of inspiring. And yeah, again, I'm just kind of enjoying it, and I'm going to try to keep doing my thing and try to take as much as I can and learn as much as I can, and also push in the direction of the stuff that I think the team could improve from. Right. And that's the beauty of having a lot of, a lot of masters in a small space, is that you can all kind of chip in just a little bit, and everybody respects everyone's opinion, and it's almost taken as fact, because almost for the most part everyone's opinion is fact and can be helpful and can steer and move the direction of the team into success. So yeah, it's just a really unique and cool spot to be right now. So I'm looking forward to kind of hopefully keeping it going and really, propelling even further past where we're at right now.
There's a lot at stake currently for Dynasty. I mean, no matter what happens at this next event, Dynasty, their current form, the narrative, the story, all this history that's there, it's no matter what happens, it's fine. But And that's been kind of one of your mantras that you guys have been saying. And obviously, I would have Ryan and Kevin Brettauer, Skinny Kevin, on our show a couple weeks ago, right after the event, and
Nice.
we talked a little bit about this mantra, kind of like no matter what happens out here, like this is a win for us, and then a lot of people say that, but the different trajectories of your career, if you just got to the pro league, I mean, that's a little bit of a different mantra. I think it should be, but you could go either way with it. But what's at stake is 4 potential wins in a row. Believe it's 27 games in a row that Dynasty has won. I have to check my notes real quick, but it's 3 events. It's so if you guys put a 4th win up, yes, okay. If 16 of the 20 teams are there, I mean, that to me, I feel like that's a record that there should be no asterisk there. I just saw Alex too, and so we talked to Ryan. We had him on a show, and with Skinny, they didn't know if they were going to be going to that event yet. He said it was like a 50-50. But then I was talking to Jason.
We're going now.
Yeah, and then I saw Alex and last weekend and talked to him about it, and I was like, so you guys are going, right? I mean, that's what I've been hearing, but I might as well ask one of the men himself. You run the team, so you guys going for sure or what? And he's like, why not? He's like, yeah, we're gonna go. I mean, why? Yeah, we're not hiding from anybody, so yeah, absolutely, we're gonna go. Let's just do it. And then I said that, I was talking to Ryan about the how many wins you got, 3 undefeated events, and Ryan was like, oh yeah, way to jinx us, Matty. And I was joking with Alex about that. He's like, dude, are you kidding me? I'm saying that while we're putting the wins up. I'm like, all right, win 20, win 21, or win 19.
Every game,
like,
right?
There's no such thing as the jinx, dude. Just say it all you want.
But it's powerful too.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You got to draw power from your success. I mean, if you can't draw power from your success, dude, good luck. It's going to be a rough life for you.
We've won our last 28 matches. Good luck.
Yeah,
good luck to you guys, right?
Yeah. So it's they actually 21. So it's an insane run that you guys are on.
Right. Yeah.
Insane run that Dynasty's on. So that's what's at stake. A 4th win. So no one's won 4 events in a row while we're all together. Historically, there's been different leagues, and again, we could spend an hour rehashing how all these the heights of different teams in different eras when the leagues were certain ways. But as it stands right now, all the best paintball players in the world play in one league, and that's the NXL. And 16 of the 20 of them, and I think all the top teams, except for maybe the Russians, aren't going to be there, or are going to be there. So to me, that's a legit 4 wins in a row. And so that's what's at stake. So now, that being said, what do you think, now coming back on the team, you don't have to give anything necessarily away, but what is that secret of the win? What is Dynasty doing better right now that no one else has caught up to, at least during this little current run? Especially because you just came from X Factor, and you guys fought against Dynasty 3 times in the finals and lost. And then now you're on Dynasty, making them stronger, especially with Blake almost cutting his thumb off. And, we'll get to all the actual nuts and bolts of the event in a couple minutes here. But, what is that? And it just, because people are going to watch this and they want to know, these teams come up the ranks, these players that want to be you one day, they want to know what that secret of the win is. Obviously, it's not as simple as you just, kind of quoting a couple paragraphs or whatever right now, or whatever you want to say. But, I got to ask you,
well,
what is that secret?
I could explain it somewhat simply, right? I mean, the secret, honestly, is the mastery of the game by a large number of the guys on the squad. And what happens, and it doesn't take much for a finals match to be lost. It doesn't. And that's the beauty of like having generally like some of the most experienced guys in the league, period. Right? When you have that much experience, the mistakes on a grand scale are fewer and far between, and that's when they matter the most. And that really is, it's a game of mistakes. And when you have masters with the years and years and years of thoughtful, mindful experience and mindful detail to every aspect of the game, you tend to not make mistakes when they matter the most, and that's, in a nutshell, kind of the difference. I would argue that X Factor, we had such a great team and a ton of weapons, but like I would argue like a lot of specialists, and maybe in if things aren't going the way that they had seen up until that moment in time in the tournament, that could derail a match for a guy. But I do look at like the Dynasty team, and it's like everybody's ready for any punch at all times, and that's tough to beat. It's really tough to beat when you got a bunch of really great individual talent that can take punches, and adapt. So yeah, I don't know. I feel really strongly about that.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on this historic run that Dynasty's been on? You were fighting against them in those previous wins as their antagonist, as an enemy. And then now you're a teammate and an ally. And so it's an interesting transition for you personally during this specific era of the game, because the big rival for Dynasty the past year and a half has been, or was, San Antonio X Factor. I do want to get your thoughts on X Factor's performance at this last event. We'll shelve that for right now, though. But just in general, seeing as how history could be made, because no one has. So Damage won 3 events from 2011 to 2012, and then Heat started come in whooping some ass in 2012, as that brand new team. But as it stands right now, if Dynasty does put this 4th win up, that would be historic. You've been around this game for a long time, and now you're just in the mix. Any thoughts on that specific potentially precedent-setting win?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously super impressive. I mean, if again, and even like you got to remember, like just doing it again and again is actually harder than just doing it the first time. Everybody's coming, and nobody wants. Well, I know we kind of have this thing where Alex has this thing where he says everybody wants Dynasty to win, which I kind of it's some weird kind of funny joke, but it's there's some truth to it. But still, everybody's coming to beat us, and to do it 3 times in a row, it's just mind-boggling. It really is. If you think about how many things it takes going your way to win, it's kind of insane, But at the same time, when you do things the right way and you focus and you energize and you really take into account all the factors, things tend to go your way sometimes. And I think that's what the mastery of this team is that there's a lot of effort and a lot of intent and a lot of understanding, and not just recent understanding. We're talking about decades of understanding at a deep level. And so when you can apply those things and the energy in the room is the right way, and guys, there's team first kind of dynamic, right? It just sets the stage for, things to be great. And I think that's what's happening right here. It's a lot of culmination and a lot of intent and doing things the right way.
Well, because we're also seeing a changing of the guard here. We're seeing a churn. We're seeing a transition in our sport. And part of that is like, when you look at what Infamous is doing, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I feel that motive and motivation is a part of this. You looked how successful Infamous was last year. At the same time, they're trying to blow up their pro DNA, and then you have these homegrown teams like Level doing so well. Aftermath taking top 4 with them being a part of with Mike and the WCPPL. There's a lot going on here. But what's fascinating is that you're seeing a lot of these new players come in, and I think it gets so hyper competitive right now. And I truly feel this is. I was interested this year to see if it was going to be as competitive as it's been the last couple seasons. COVID has obviously thrown a curveball to everybody, but it has been, I feel, the most competitive it's ever been. Because the way of tearing up, there's so many clinics to take. You can do the BKI stuff. There's a lot of good regional leagues. There's so many ways you can get better at this game. So it's just insane. So just to kind of surmise this, what I want your thoughts on here is that, we're watching this big churn, and you guys are doing the project thing. You got Hormesis, and Iron Kid's documentary is going to be coming out, and then Dynasty starts Field 1. I feel that it's also breathed life into some of these people, because it gives them an extra motive. to still go out there and kick some ass, dude, to remember who they are. And it's been kind of a pleasure to see. I mean, since you have been around for a long time now, I mean, do you feel this is the most competitive it's been? And then kind of maybe talk about, how some of these players and teams are kind of taking it upon themselves to do podcasts like Marcelo and Tyler's podcast. There's just so much cool stuff going on right now.
Yeah. Well, I think I do think it's the most competitive. I can't remember a time where you've got, I mean, you do have legitimately like 8 teams that you could legit make the case that they could win the tournament on a Sunday. And honestly, I don't think that's ever been the case. I've always been like 4 or 5, max. And in some years you're looking at like 3, and it's so to say that, I mean, honestly, again, right now you've got 8 or 9 or maybe even 10 teams that could legitimately go do it, get it done, on any given day. And, there's a lot of factors for that. I think a lot of people are playing and really diving in to prove, either to themselves or the world that they can compete and really do it well. And a lot of teams are working really, really hard. And on top of that, a lot of individuals are really putting in the work as well. That's the one thing I've seen. I think I see the most now is that individually people are like really on it to achieve more, and my hat's off to it. And I actually really respect and appreciate that because, like, in my opinion, winning is great, but you want to, and this is, I think I differ than most people, but like, I don't want to win in an easy fashion, like I want the most to be brought out of me in a win. I want the wins to be very hard and not easy in any sense of the word. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, like, sure, on Sunday and it's the finals and I'll take a 6-0 beating, or a win to win a tournament like that is great. However, like, I want to know that's against the team that is not a slouch, like that all those guys have been putting everything they could into it. And we just happen to be that much more dominant. Right. But I don't want it to be like, okay, well, these guys really aren't as good as us and we just beat them,
Yeah. Well,
so
I'm sorry, you got more because I got a little sideline for you.
No, not really. That's kind of my thought on it. But yeah, the game, it's a really beautiful space right now. There's a lot of people working really hard, and my hat's off to them. And I really, I love the opportunity to be the best against that type of field, and that's what's really exciting about paintball now. It's like, if you win on these moments, it's a big, I think it's really a big deal because there's so many more good teams now.
No, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, if you look at the list, I mean, Infamous is sitting at 9th right now. X Factor's sitting at 16th. I don't think it would shock anyone if X Factor showed up to this next event in Texas pissed off and murdered their way into the finals. That would not surprise anybody. Again, I do want to get your thoughts on X Factor, but I feel like I want to get through a couple of these other things first.
Right.
But yeah, there's, I mean, Heat sitting at 6th, Impact's at 5th. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of teams that it could, and also some of these teams just keep getting better. Level is sitting at 3rd right now. I think Level could maybe win an event. I don't know. I don't know if they're ready yet. That's up to them as to when that's going to happen. But before we kind of dive in, but I definitely want to talk about Dynasty's road through this last event. I do want to pick your brain on these other things too, but since we're talking about creativity and what it takes to get things accomplished to build these teams, I definitely want to talk about your project stuff too, because you guys got a drop coming up. So before we dive really into the rabbit hole on some of these squads, what's going on with this? Because I just love what you and Ryan are doing. It's obviously it's no pun intended, but it is a rad project. We've spoken a little bit about this before on different shows. But why did you guys decide where is this new? Well, I'll let you talk about it. But where did the kernel, the seed of this most recent drop come from, and why did you guys decide to go with the gun platform that's about to be released?
Right. So, well, first off, we are releasing a project TM40, which is DLX or GOG. And it's kind of funny because I don't remember maybe necessarily the first where the brainchild started, if you will, because we've been working on this thing for over a year. It's been like a year and 4 or 5 months. So it's been a while since the initial kind of conversation that got this whole thing started. So I don't really remember. I mean, ultimately the idea for the brand started from being creative and understanding that there's kind of a little bit of a niche in the high end market in the sense that like there's not a lot of customized stuff out right now, and that initially started from me having like custom 101 milled guns for myself to use for seasons, right? And then we pushed that a little bit further and got into the Project G, which is the CS2 Pro release of that, right? And it really kind of took off from there. And Ryan had this really cool idea of making more limited release stuff, but not just guns, and so we've been learning that process and kind of doing that. And we realized, hey, you know what? We should not be just thinking small on it. We should look at doing other high-end gear, right? I mean, people use Luxes, people use Forces, people use the die high-end guns too. And why shouldn't we be kind of targeting those guys as well, and also at the same time, like, at the time, obviously, I was playing on X Factor and using Planet Eclipse, and now obviously I'm with Dynasty using a Force. So, getting in and understanding the inner workings of the gun and what's possible for the TM40 is also kind of a unique position to be put in, having not ever used one of those really before. So, but yeah, it's been cool. It's been awesome working with the GOG guys like Hans and Adam and even Sam Monful with Heat have been, kind of a part of the process. It's been fun and exciting, and we're really excited for this drop. We've got 300 limited release, custom milled, and custom anodized guns. They won't be made again, and we'll be doing a pre-order in a couple of weeks, and likely we'll do a few pre-orders. But nonetheless, we should have all the guns shipped between May and June. And so, yeah, it's just kind of an exciting time. It'll be something a little bit different because up to this point, it's been all Eclipse releases as far as guns are concerned. And so, yeah, it'll be nice. And again, like for us, the creative process on any drop or release that we do is really what's fun about it. We're creating art, we're creating, memorabilia, if you will. And we kind of are learning a part of every piece of equipment and how it's made and kind of how a lot of these companies are working, right? And so it's been really cool, and we've worked with a lot of great companies so far, and we're going to continue to push the envelope on that, and we've got a lot of stuff kind of planned out for the rest of the season, and yeah, we're really enjoying it, and we appreciate all the support obviously up to this point, and it's just been really, really cool. And Ryan and I are obviously really great friends, and we've ran a team together, and now we're running this business together. And it's just been a pretty neat little evolution of what started as such a small idea.
Well, I just think there's such a place for this, because if you see kind of what's happening, well, it's funny. I was talking to Art Dolshansky. He's one of our creative guys behind the scenes, the editor and also director of For Sundays. He's got long hair. He's a little American Russian guy, runs around, super fun. But
you're talking about Arthur, right?
Oh yeah. So, but we were talking about stuff,
okay.
and I'm talking about art, and but he was saying how if you look at like how much goggles are going for these days, or a lot of this old the Jersey market, or just all this sort of stuff, or these high end guns, and then these like special edition high end guns, or with like the badass anodizing, all this cool stuff. He's like, yeah, man. I mean, essentially back in the day, paintball was was obviously it's a fun sport to play, but it also had like a tinker element of things, because
Right.
It's incredibly intense and it's adrenaline filled, but you also go home, and he was telling me a story how he went to, I think it was like 2003 or 2, when he was just a kid. He went to the Amateur Open, which doesn't exist anymore, but at the time it was where a lot of people released products. And so a lot of people that, were amateurs would go there because only amateurs could play it. But all the pros would go, not all, but some pros and people own companies. But anyway, he would go there, and he went there, and he went and bought this, this aftermarket this and this aftermarket that. And he's like, now the guns are so amazing that, people still want to trick out their stuff. So now they're tricking out their goggles, or they're buying like a super badass high-end gun, because there's just not a lot of ways to have your own unique thing. So they want the low run stuff. They don't necessarily want to just go buy. And don't get me wrong, if like you're going to buy a stock, any of the badass guns that are on the market, you'll get the lowest price point, and that gun's going to shoot great. But,
Right.
it's gonna be the same green or purple or whatever that another 1,000 people have. That sort of thing. So people want all this unique stuff, and it's become a big part of the game. And so you and I were kind of talking off camera, and then we were talking about this stuff, but it reminded me of this super fascinating documentary about Hollywood producers. And then one of the things that always stuck with me from that film, and it's a very insightful film about actually making things creatively in the world and getting them done. But one of the most famous Hollywood producers, he said that, the two things you really need to be a producer is taste and tenacity. You have to know what people want to consume, and then you have to have the tenacity to find the right pieces to put together to bring that product to market. And you could say that about
to make it happen.
Paintball thing. You could say that about whatever it's going to be. There's so many things that could apply to. And so this is one of those similar situations, and I just think it's a really cool thing. And I saw the little teaser of the mills you guys had on it. I was kind of stoked that we were having this show so I could kind of pick your brain on the creative process of that, because I think that's a lot of people don't understand how much goes in behind the scenes to make something like any of these things that are happening, but to make that a reality, so
for sure.
Could you enlighten us a little bit on that?
I get what you're saying. I mean, a lot of it is, and a lot of people don't realize, like, this has actually been, it's like kind of the original ideas of this are like, certainly right now you see a lot of people have branding and their own brands going on right now in paintball, which is really cool to see, and like a few years ago, I kind of started little stuff where like I was doing JT straps, right? And those were all done like that. I was a part of that process, getting those made. And that kind of actually, surprisingly enough, it really kind of blew up the JT market again. And then I started doing custom barrels with dye, right? And that kind of was like that was where the infancy of that idea, right? And now, we release dye barrels, but a lot of people are releasing custom milled and custom anodized barrels now. And then like, Hormesis comes out and they do the headband thing, and right. And so now that's a thing again now too. And everybody's doing it at a real kind of like creative and artistic way. It's really neat. And so like, at the basis of what we're doing, Ryan and I come up with ideas, or we think about a product we want to do or maybe work with, right? And then we try to add some art or creativity to it and make a statement with the way it's designed. And then we go through the kind of inner workings with each manufacturer and figure out, all right, well, how do we got to do this? What do we got to do? What's our timeline, right? What's kind of, how's this all playing out? And then obviously with COVID, that's its own little kind of mess or monster to deal with as well, just because supply chain is insane right now. If you're trying to make anything in the world, I deal with that in my other business too, because we renovate homes. And so like, if you want to order windows right now, you just have to wait 4 to 6 months. It's just is what it is. So yeah, it's just been fun. And Ryan and I are kind of enjoying the creative process, and we get to work with designers like Nick Laval is one of our main designers. We work with Dixon Yang. Obviously it's like, he'll be in my wedding too. But we get to work with people we care about and really enjoy working with, and hopefully we're going to expand that even more. And honestly, what's kind of wild, I haven't even mentioned or thought about mentioning it yet, but Ryan and I are not stopping at this. Like, we have big plans for the rest of this year, and we'll release that information when we're a little further into it. But we have some kind of like what I believe is like really big ideas that are going to be really exciting for us and other people involved in the sport, whether that's manufacturers or consumers, both. So yeah, we just got a lot going on right now, and I'm really excited for the next, couple of seasons or couple of years for this company.
Yeah, it's just to me, it's one of those things, a good idea when you look at it and go, of course, that's
makes sense, right?
Shows you something, or somebody shows you something like, dude, check out this product. You're like, oh yeah, what? Of course, that's a thing. So no, I just think it's really cool. I was going to ask if you had any teasers you did want to drop. Obviously, I'm assuming, you've got the TM40 coming out. I mean, that's, everyone loves the Lux platform. Of course, some of these people have been already asked me. I mean, people behind the scenes were like, dude, are they going to drop a Force? Is there going to be a Project Force?
Yeah, I am working on that. Course, yeah, no, I can. Right. Yeah, I'm definitely working on it. It's just one of those things, and these things take time. Again, like the first thought for the TM40 that we're dropping, I mean, that was, again, it was like in January of last year. So it takes time to get things done, and sometimes there's
And
kind
done
of
the
little
right
hoops you
way.
got to jump through. Right,
Done the right
exactly
way.
right, and
Yeah.
and that's what's people don't understand that part, like how the level of involvement to get anything really done is and certainly like you're saying, the right way. It just takes, you got to factor in so many things. And anyways, thankfully, at this point, Ryan and I have got a lot of it dialed down, but the best part is we're never finished, and we're always trying to learn from every aspect of it. So to be better for the next one, right? I mean, we absolutely, everything we've done, even the stuff we've nailed on, we're trying to figure out ways to do it better, and that's essentially what our company is all about. And it's going to continue to be just like that. But yeah, we have some like pretty great ideas. We are planning to do another company that's not the same idea, but it'll be synonymous and totally intertwined in in kind of the fabric of paintball, hopefully going forward. And whatever, we'll have some kind of more info on that as we're ready to release it. But really looking forward to it. That's going to be something that's going to be exciting for me for the next several years, I know.
Yeah, no, it's, again, just no brainer. I'm glad that you and Ryan are doing it. I feel like it's a great partnership. Obviously you go into Dynasty. I was like, I wonder how that's going to work out for Project, but you guys are both adults. So,
yeah, we're good
totally
friends
fine.
and we're adults. Yeah. He understands.
Yeah, no, but it was just funny because I was up at the Hormesis and Field One warehouse, and you go into Ryan's office, and there's just like, it's just an insane amount of amazing paintball memorabilia, and then just like all the Hormesis, like, it's like the treasure trove. It's like Smog the Dragon's treasure trove of craziness. So he's like, yeah, he's like, do you want some stuff? And I was like, I don't know, what do you got? I'm not going to necessarily ask or anything, but one of the ones that he was like, oh, you have one of this, you have that. But he hooked me up with the one of your
dude, that's a gem right there. Matty, like, seriously, those things, they're just super rare. Like, our stuff is hard, almost impossible to get, and obviously the Hormesis stuff is too. So it's like kind of like the double, super elite, hard to get stuff.
Yeah, we played a big game, and I can't remember if I told you this already, but it's funny. I've had these on my desk in here for a little bit. But he gave me, remember our softball team that we had, the Meat Hammers?
The Meat Hammers. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So he made a Hormesis Meat Hammer headband. I don't even know how many of these there are, but it's got the Meat Hammer logo.
That's
on
the
it,
holy grail right there, dude.
Cover your kids' eyes, but
that's
use
great.
your imagination on this
That's great.
one. But yeah, it was our softball team. So yeah, I got like I don't even know how many of those he made, but
yeah, that's awesome.
Pretty sweet. They got some sweet Hormesis stuff for when I go.
Yeah,
play
it's pretty cool. It's kind of like, why it's still mind-boggling to me, because I mean, it's been a while now that they've been doing the Hormesis bands, but like, holy moly, what a movement! Like they totally came in and just stamped some dominance, and certainly, like,
makes so much sense.
So unique. Oh, absolutely, it makes a lot of sense, and obviously the way they pulled it off, and the level of thought and consideration that went into the project, and now it's like, of course, it makes a lot of sense that it's as successful and really unique and awesome as it is, even just the community aspect of it. But still, at the same time, like, that didn't exist 2 years ago, and now, like, you can't think about playing paintball without seeing it everywhere. It's wild.
Yeah, no, it's totally wild, but it just goes to show you that, again, taste and tenacity, knowing what is possible, what could be a thing, knowing what people want to consume, or at least having something that you're passionate about. It just goes to show you that passion and hard work mean a lot in this world. I mean, there's not really much more you could point to that equals success than those two things, because you can get through so much of it. And then it's also cool because, Oliver is heading back here to the States. Still uncertain.
I think he might be landing today, maybe. Yeah.
Is it today? I know Alex is coming in San Diego.
Maybe,
yeah, I know, because Alex is here now. He just landed because his wife and my wife are friends. So we got like a bunch of kid stuff planned because they're bringing their kids down. But then Alex is going to be here for a long time,
nice.
and then Dan Napoli's coming in for the whole interview stuff, and Chris Diltz maybe too. But he just had a kid, so I don't know if he's going to be able to make it. Congratulations to the Dilts family for their first kid, but
Congrats.
yeah, it's just it's definitely getting interesting on the creative side of things in paintball. But again, when you I truly believe if the world doesn't fall apart, that we are heading into another bit of a potential paintball golden age. I was blessed enough to live through one of those and kind of have seen this, was young enough at the time in the early 90s to kind of catch what was the zeitgeist of the 80s, and had played on one of the top pro teams at that time, and I was a huge paintball nerd. I loved it. And then I also worked at a paintball store that had literally it's called Paintball Connection. It had every single issue of every paintball magazine that had ever been made. And it was a slow field, man, or a slow store. So when I would man the store, I'd, wait
Just
2
hang
hours
out,
and someone would
right?
come in and I'd sell them a stock autococker, and at 16 years old, and then I'd just go read paintball magazines. So I read every single issue of every paintball magazine that was ever made from the early 80s or mid 80s until 1994, when I was working at
That's
that
incredible.
store. But it's interesting, but it's like you see and then live through the at the time, all of the craziness. But I really truly believe, after seeing all that and reading all that stuff and kind of living through all this stuff, that, and just kind of reading the tea leaves a bit, is that I do think we are potentially heading to another golden age.
It'd be
Because
a great
if you
space right now
look
for paintball.
yeah, dude, because if you look at, like with COVID, I mean, there wasn't a lot you could do. I haven't talked to a person that runs a successful, I'm not talking about some like ramshackle field or ramshackle company that isn't doing the best business practices that you should be doing if you want to actually, like, like profit equals sustainability. Like, so you got to make money or things go away. And so, but I talk to people that run fields, and everyone's crushing it right now. Like everyone's doing really, really well. If they run a field properly, and you look at how good some of these up and coming teams are getting. You look at like Dynasty's resurgence and all these people starting their own company. It's just a really cool place that we're in right now. And if you kind of track that forward a few years, I think it could be amazing, so it's a really kind of a rad spot that we're in right now.
Right.
What do you think?
Yeah, no, I completely agree, dude. I mean, again, the energy right now in paintball is gold. It's really good. And it's going to continue to keep going that way, right? And that's how, it's like everything comes in the ebb and flow, and there's momentum that is a part of everything, right? And right now the momentum is really, really good. And I think it's going to be for a while. It's really cool. Great time to be in paintball for sure.
Yeah, I think so too. I do want to ask again, before I let you go, about the actual trajectory of Dynasty through the last event. But before we kind of get to that, I want to pick your brain about, some of these other stories that we're seeing play out. I mean, there's, you and I could spend 8 hours talking about this, but we don't have that much time. So I do want to kind of dial in. Before I kind of have my questions for you, was there anyone or anything or any team or players that you personally were like, wow, that was cool, that you want to talk about before I have my questions for you?
Yeah, I mean, I would argue like it's hard to not say the shocker for me was LBL. I mean, they beat the Russians, and I mean, you could argue they could have beat the Saints to be in the finals. And again, at this point, I don't think they'd made a top 4 yet. And even though you can tell those guys are working really hard, but like, it's still hard to fathom them beating the Russians. Like, I don't know. To me, I looked at like the Russians probably were coming in, like you'd imagine they have the most to prove because they haven't really had a full squad in a couple seasons. And I was, I'd imagine those guys were really wanting it, and I just like those guys trained super hard too. So I'm kind of, that was for me the shocker of the event. I'm thinking in my head, there's no way the Russians aren't going to stomp them, and they came out and beat them. And again, they went 4-0 on the prelims too, so it's not like that was a fluke. Those guys were playing really good. And it was really cool to see. I mean, again, it just doesn't happen that often where a relatively young new team without any like kind of stars essentially goes out and it dominates like that. So it's just, my hat was off to them, and it's really cool to see that. Again, it just hasn't been done in a long time. So yeah, that's kind of for me the biggest takeaway from, like, as far as a shocker to me.
Well, the reason I'm glad that you brought up level right away, because to me, I feel that that's one of the biggest stories in the sport right now. And having played X Factor when you guys first came up the ranks, I remember we played you guys. God, this was like 2005 or 6. I can't remember the exact year, but
Right.
it was the what was the first year you guys got in the pro league? Do you remember? I
It was
didn't I didn't go
06. It
down
was
the
06.
okay, okay. So
I
it was
don't think
06.
we
So
played you guys until 07 actually though, because it was halfway through 06 that we played. So we only played 2 events pro in 06, which was San Bernardino and then World Cup. And if I remember correctly, we lost. Yeah, in San Bernardino, we only lost to the Russians, I think, twice. And then at World Cup, I think the Naughty Dogs knocked us out, if I remember correctly.
I can't remember where it was or what event it was or even what exact year it was. But the thing that I remember,
Right.
kind of like you talked about earlier, and I was, we kind of went off on a tangent, and that's what this show is for. It's for, conversating on tangents that are interesting in paintball. But is that yeah, like you had said that you want your wins to be difficult. You want that hard road, because traveling a hard road and how you respond to things along or dealing with those adversities defines you as a person. It's really cool. It's really easy to be a cool person when everything's going well. Super easy when you're smashing everybody, or all the stars are aligned for you in your life. And yeah, it's super easy to be a great person. But when things aren't going well, based on whatever's happening, your own personal flaws, the flaws of others will come up. So how you handle your flaws, how you handle other people's flaws, how you deal with all these things, and how you try to make it a better place for you in the world. That's at the end of the day, the things you remember. So, I don't even remember the result of this game, but what I remember was the struggle. And I remember because at typical, we're, well, we're a badass pro team. We're going to stomp these dudes who are these rookies. We're going to, introduce them to the league type situation. And you guys just had no fear. You guys did not want to get put back into your bunkers. And I'm gunfighting you guys. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, dude, go back into your bunker. What are you doing, dude? I'm like, whizzing paintballs right by your head. Why will you not check? Check back in, dude. What are you going to do? And then and you guys are like, these little Texans just talking tons of shit too. And I was just like, what is going on here? But instantly, I was like, all right, well, these guys came for their respect, and I have to respect that. And again, thank your enemies. This is paintball, man. We're not out playing for blood. So, you will bleed a little bit. It's going to hurt. But at the end of the day, we all get to, slap fives, pound, go drink beers afterwards, and talk about how awesome
we get to push each other.
Yeah, that's the whole point, right? So that's kind of like, I look at the swagger that Level's starting to walk around, and that's why I wanted to bring this up with you, is that Level right now, and how I saw some of those guys walking on the field while they were getting these wins out there, in a big tournament for them, dude. They're showing up at the beginning of the year. They had a splash last year where they made Sunday on at the third event. They did not make Sunday at Cup. So now coming into 2022, we're thinking, all right, well, was that a flash in the pan? Yeah, you're right. They don't have any, quote unquote superstars, but those dudes are becoming stars in their own right. When you look at who's producing in their, top 7 guys ish, as far as roster is concerned. And so they are starting to earn that respect. And yeah, dude, they show up and they again go undefeated in the prelims. They beat DMG by 2. They had some wars too. They beat DMG by 2. They beat Damage by 1. Then they smoked the Ironman, didn't let the Ironman put up a point, and then had to beat Infamous by 1. So they went through war in the prelims. And then they go and barely beat Legion by 1. And Legion has, like you said, their starting roster back, and that roster is
they're
definitely going to be a favorite.
They're not slouches.
They're going to win.
Yeah, they've got everybody.
If Legion brings that roster to that's a favorite at every event that roster plays at, they're going to be a favorite to win the event. They've proven that they're a winning caliber squad, and they beat the Russians, and then they lose to the Saints by 2. So it's like, damn, Columbus Level, look at you guys. This is a story. This is incredibly impressive. So yeah, it's just
it really is. And now people are not going to really, and that's what's funny is like at this point you have to take notice, and you have to be mindful. Like, all right, well, these guys aren't just gonna. It's just like any of the other top teams. Like we have to really be mindful of these guys. Obviously, I think I've only played them once, which was last year on Sunday in the third event, the event they made Sunday. But yeah, obviously, like the results they speak for themselves. They're doing a great job, especially for a new team.
Well, and so we're also going to have the Level guys on a show. I was trying to set the show up for this week. It didn't work out because I'm trying to get. So they're picking up Carl Markowski. And
that's right, man. That's a wild pickup. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, right. So I was trying to get. Well, he's an Ohio paintball legend, And probably
Right.
still, I wouldn't be surprised that, I mean, he'll probably smoke 90% of the dudes in the league as far as speed is concerned at 35 or however old he is right now. But it will add another look for them, some more legs and some offense. But I wanted to get, I'm trying to get Danny Schonauer, Carl Markowski, Robbie, and Pando all on the show kind of in the same hour and a half.
All
It
right,
was just kind of tough
right.
to get with their schedules. But
Yeah, that'll
so
be interesting.
in the next week or so, week or two, we're gonna get the level guys on. But when you look at that roster, you know, these are names we got to start remembering, just because they are earning the right for us to remember their names. You know, Danny on the snake side, Sam Serberg D side. But one of the things they're doing amazingly well is they're shooting tons of bodies on the break. So, you know, Lemon, Weber, Corin Weber. I mean, they got some depth there a little bit now, and they pick up Carl. It's just going to be really interesting to see, can they keep this up right now? Like you said, now that everyone's going to be looking at them, everyone's going to scout the hell out of level. Everyone's going to show up to that game ready to go. I mean, I don't care who it is. It doesn't matter who they play. Every single
You have a
team,
better
they're gonna get their
understanding
best
of
game
what
out
they're
of that.
going to do. Right,
Yeah, exactly.
You start to take notice. You have a better understanding, knowing your enemy, and then you get to kind of. And that's also one of the things about being a new team that you do get an advantage of, is like you're just not as well scouted. You know, you don't quite know the guys. You know, you don't know their tendencies, and that, you know, there really is a lot to that. You know, there's a lot of value in understanding kind of what a team really likes to do, or what individuals really like to do, because you can make decisions based off of that to put yourself in a better position, right? So, but yeah, anyways,
100%.
nonetheless, I'll be interested to see how they do the rest of the year.
And then, you know, Aftermath making it to the top 4, got to get your thoughts on that. I think that, you know,
Yeah,
I mean, obviously, you know,
to
Mike
me,
has been. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you know, it's not at this point for me, it's not that surprising, because they have a lot of they have a lot of good players. You know, they got good players on there, and they work hard. You know, and they're definitely motivated and dedicated to doing this as good as they can do. And they've got Mike, who's like just one of the best track records of getting the most out of players at any point in time, right? I mean, he's got most elite guys in the game. I mean, quite a bunch of them have gone through his camp at one point or another, and also will go to bat for how much he influenced them as players, right? So, you know, again, it's like if he's involved with the program, it's just a matter of time before those guys all get really, really good. And so they're playing like that right now, and they're beating good teams, and it's not really that much of a shock. You know, and for the most part, they've been on a steady incline, and the further they get as individual players, that takes time. You know what I mean? Like they're playing well as a unit, and Mike makes sure that happens in the kind of practice structure, prepping to a tournament. But still, Mike is on those guys to be better individually. And as those guys, as the team keeps continuing to push their level as individuals, they end up bringing to the team a much better team, right? And so, yeah. Anyways, I mean, it's not shocked. I would be shocked if they don't continue to kind of make good progress on Sundays. You know, I mean, they're definitely. I mean, shoot, honestly, that was the hardest game we played the entire tournament. I think it was the only team that had a lead on us at all. And honestly, you would argue that they probably should have won the match in the semifinals, right? I mean, they were up on us like 2 or 3 points, I think twice in the match. And, you know, obviously we kind of figured out what we needed to do to pull that one out. And we did, thankfully. But yeah, I mean, again, if they kind of play that a little differently in the semifinals, they could be the tournament winners.
But that's the most important point, though, is that when we get to Sunday, how do people respond? When you are at the most stressful moment of your paintball adventure, what do you do? And when you get enough reps there over time, it breeds that confidence in that intense moment. And with Level and Aftermath and the guys on that squad, because if you look at Aftermath, like we had Joe Barrett, he was on the show last week, and he played his ass off, dude, up the center. He was a huge weapon.
Yeah, it was a great show, actually, too.
Yeah, dude, he had a lot of good things to say, and also it's an inspiring thing, man. I mean, Barrett, that's a guy who transformed Mike was in his ear screaming bloody murder for weeks and weeks and weeks and months, trying to get that dude out of the shell. Time, yeah. You know, for a long ass time, he's just screaming at him like, "Hey, can you stop playing like a coward? you're supposed to be, I thought you were good at this. Can you please, be some sort of offensive threat? Because if not, you're going to get cut, which is basically what Mike says to everyone except for like 2 dudes on that team. And maybe even then a couple points here or there. But, but that's the thing. It's like, if you choose to go and be coached by Mike Himon, even though Mike has softened up in his old age, like the rest of us, he's still a super fiery guy, and he's going to give you the
You got to be ready for it.
Because yeah, he's the one cutting the checks, man. So yeah, I mean, he doesn't want to be spending that money and go out there and be embarrassed. He's told the paintball world, I will build a winning team again. And I don't know if these are the 5 or the 10 guys that will be there when we win a tournament, because if they don't perform, I will bring the next guys in. And that's, when I got on the Ironman, Shane told all of us young kids, like, and I've said this before, but this is how it is on all the top teams. It's a little different for some people, but when you're up and coming, and he was like, look, I love you guys. You're super fun to hang out with. I believe in your talent, but the axe is sharp. We hear that all the time. He literally pull out an imaginary axe and just be like, going through, just like chonk, thunk, like, hey, the axe is sharp, boys. Axe is sharp. He just let us know all the time during practice for like the first year and a half that I was on the team, until like I cut my teeth and earned my spot on the squad. But that was a huge motivation, because I didn't want to get cut from the team that I grew up, idolizing and wanted to be on, and help them win a world championship again. And so, but the fact that he stuck around and took those lessons, let those lessons resonate, change his game, and then played like a beast up the center, that's huge. And then when you look at what Hallberg's doing, and how Mike Mesa came back, and how well, Thomas Kim's, I feel, one of the best players in the league. Like, that team is getting pretty lethal. And I agree with you. I do think that they probably will stick around. If you look at their adventure, so here's what's fascinating is that you guys, and I do, before I let you go, we got to go down the rabbit hole a little bit and talk about your guys going through the tournament. We got to talk about the Saints. We got a couple other teams I want to ask you about, but Aftermath. So you guys went a plus 16. So you're plus minus. How many points for? How many against? Overall through the tournament, right? You guys were a plus 16, and the event before that, if you just go back a little bit with Dynasty, Dynasty was a plus 17 at Cup for that victory. They were a plus 23 at the third event, which was very impressive. That's a huge plus minus. And then if you look at the Saints at second place, they were at an even 0 plus minus, 34 points for and 34 against. Level was at a plus 9, 32-23. Aftermath was at a plus 1, 31-30. And that's because Aftermath got smoked by Heat in their last game of the prelims.
in the prelims.
Yeah, so they smoked the ML Kings, which is kind of cool because the ML Kings are getting really good, 6-1. And then on day one, they beat Thunder and beat New York Extreme in 2 1-point games, high scoring shootouts, 7-6.
Right.
And then
those were crazy games. Actually, that Extreme game was nuts.
Yeah, dude, they had a ton of crazy games, because then they had a crazy game. He went down, I think it was a 5-0 deficit
in the quarters. That was a nutty
in the
game.
Quarters.
Yeah,
it was nutty. And then so they get mercy ruled, didn't put up a point against Heat. Then they almost mercy rule Heat. They ended up getting the win. It was one of the highest scoring games of the tournament, 8-7. I think that was actually the highest scoring game of the tournament.
Right.
And then they lose to you guys by 1. So, dude, what a crazy run emotionally through that event for Aftermath. But
yeah,
but
that was probably an emotional day for those guys.
Oh, dude, for sure. And then Impact was sitting at 5th with a plus 13. Heat with a plus 16. Damage with a plus 16. And then Legion with a plus 11. So we're down to our 8th place team sitting at a plus 11. So it's just, I don't know.
That is kind of wild, actually.
It's getting kind of interesting. What do you think about the Saints? What are your thoughts on their performance?
I mean, obviously, I think they should be happy, but at the same time, like, I don't know how you're not expecting that. I mean, they've got 4 guys from Impact last year. And not to say that I don't think Impact's been like as dominant as they used to be for a while now, but those guys are all capable. And Silos is playing good. They got Corey. I mean, they got a deep roster, dude. They got enough guys to make it happen. And I think a little bit of, and again, having Short kind of running the ship and kind of he's aware enough and has been around a long enough time to understand all the little details that go into it, So, I mean, to me, I'm not really surprised they've got a great team. It's not really that shocking. All those guys have to do is go out and perform like they can, and there should be a deep Sunday team, But yeah, I mean, obviously at the same time, though, you'd imagine that they're pretty happy with placing second or even top 4 in the first event, certainly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens, in that camp for the rest of the season. I'm hearing there's a little bit of a kind of small issues there, but I'm sure we'll see how those things work themselves out.
There always are some small issues. What are your
Yes.
thoughts? Yeah, there's always issues. Yeah, that's part of the deal. What are your thoughts on? Because again, so Level taking third, huge story. X Factor missing their first Sunday in I think it's 7 years is also a story too. They took 16th, so their plus minus was 16 points for, 23 against. Again, only played 4 games because didn't make it onto the most important day. But they were a -7. They lost to Energy by 1 in their first game, beat Revo by 1, lost to the Saints by 3, and then lost to you guys by 4. Obviously, there's nobody on planet Earth other than the people on that team currently that know that team as well as you do. So what are your thoughts on, this obviously underperformance for them? What do you think?
I mean, there's a few things. I mean, it's obviously no matter how you spin it, they underperformed. I mean, no doubt about it. They were in a bunch of close games and actually it's kind of wild, but I think because they went 1-3, but the only game they won was TJ won a 1-on-1 to win the match against Revo. Like that's kind of wild. If you think about it, they could have gone 0-4, right? I mean, am I right on that? They only won 1 match?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. So I mean, they could have it's possible that they could have gone 0-4 if TJ had not won that 1-on-1 in the Revo game, which is, and again, all that really is a gross underperformance, when you look at this, the roster, and, to be honest with you, it was such a weird event or weird kind of time for me to not be on the team. And then also we drew them. And honestly, I'm leaving X Factor in I still believe this to be true, but in such a great position because the team is very deep and they get LJ, and TJ's back now, and there's no weakness there at all, as far as talent is concerned, and so whereas I'm going to a team that's won the last 2 events, but at the same time, that's a tough streak to continue. And you could argue, I could see X Factor having a better season than we've had the last couple of seasons, and I'm not a part of it at all, and therefore, and also Dynasty has won the last 2 seasons, and I'm going to go there, and we very well could have a worse season, so it's kind of a weird kind of understated pressure and just kind of a weird kind of cloud in the air, if you will. But I think what it looked like to me was that they weren't very comfortable. And I do believe that part of my involvement with the team was to really help players become comfortable in their spots and create some familiarity with the way they play their position. And honestly, that is legitimately something I did on that team for a long time with almost every position on the field. And it was interesting to see me watch guys that I'm very used to seeing play at a very high level play like they were very uncomfortable. But I'm sure they're going to figure it out. I'm sure they'll take it in stride and learn and move forward. And yeah, I am excited to see how they respond. I mean, that's the beauty of paintball is whatever happened last, who cares? You've got the next, there's always going to be another tournament, and you can, how you respond is really important in my opinion, and not just in paintball, in life.
That's why paintball is such an awesome metaphor for life itself and gives you a lot of armor to deal with the rest of the world if you participate in it at a competitive level. But this was a talk track for us throughout the off season, for the sport in general, for X Factor. But the example when you had left, because everyone's like, a lot of people were like, oh, dude, X Factor's losing Archie, man. What are they going to do? And I was like, well, look at that roster. And then they picked up LJ. Now, obviously, I love you, I respect you, but one player does not a team make. I mean, look at, and then the example that I was using was Tyler Harmon for Dynasty. So Dynasty shows up to the first event last year, and they take a 10th place with Tyler. And obviously some dissension in the ranks behind the scenes. Tyler leaves. And then how is Dynasty now going to respond to losing and everyone knows that Tyler is a beast, dude. I mean, he's a one-on-one champion.
Correct.
He's an all-star. I mean, Tyler was one of the core guys of their offense. Like, you know, everyone on that team knew how big of a hit that was from a talent level for their squad. And then they were tore up by injuries. So Dynasty, before their run, this is what makes the run even more fascinating and amazing. No hyperbole here. This is just facts. So they take a 10th. They're beat up by injuries. They lose one of their all-stars. And everyone's like, oh my God, I mean, we did a piece in Go Sports and, you know, oh my God, is Dynasty done? You know, that's just to get people to watch it. But the answer was no, they're not.
Yeah.
And then if you go back and watch that, we talked about in that came to life, because we said, yeah, man,
they responded well.
Not a teammate. And so they responded well. So then they pull a third, a first after that. And then now I thought, okay, X Factor loses Archie. That's a big hit. You know, can't argue that. But with the talent that's on that team, the depth that's on that team, the leadership that's on that team, and where each one of those guys are in their careers, that's why I was kind of scratching. Okay, yeah, they were the bracket of death with you guys, Revo, Energy, and the Saints. But I just thought that, and then there's a lot of season left. We got a lot of tournaments left to go. I think they're gonna. I still think they're gonna
absolutely
fine. Mark my words.
Yeah.
But this is, you know, you can't beat around the bush here. 16th with a 1-3, and like you said, almost could have went 0-4. That's a disappointment.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, you know, and again, Tyler making that kind of comparison is a good one. However, Tyler's involvement on Dynasty, definitely it wasn't to the level of mine on X Factor. Yeah. You know, honestly, not even close. And but that doesn't take anything away from Tyler. That just wasn't his team to build or his team to whatever. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, and that's one of the things. Like Ryan and our involvement on that team was so deep that, it's kind of strange, but like most of the players don't even realize that, you know? And, you know, I don't want to say like I thought they would do better 100%, but however, it was kind of one of those things of like, man, I'm kind of sort of curious how it'll go over there, you know? And granted, it's just one event. So how they respond from here on out is, you know, going to be important for that franchise, you know?
Yeah, it is one of the most compelling stories, knowing that team is still super stacked. Again, if they show up and win the next event, I mean, that's not some
it wouldn't be that shocking.
Yeah, it really wouldn't. So, but again, that's how competitive things are. They're at 16th right now. That's how hard this NXL Pro League is. So before I let you go, we got to kind of talk a little bit about Dynasty's, again, undefeated run, third event in a row, undefeated here through this last event, and your thoughts on it. We touched base, you know, with Ryan and Skinny on that. I just think that it's every facet, you know, every, you know, a part of the machine that is a pro paintball team has their own version of the story that happened. And so
their truth.
Their truth, you know, and so for yours on this one, because it was you know, I mean, every team put points up against you. And when I was talking to Alex this past weekend, we were hanging out, he was saying that he's like, I don't think we didn't have a Mercy Rule win at the last event. I was trying to go back to last time. So the last time, well, they did, you guys, Dynasty did have a Mercy Rule against AC Dallas, which was the last place team in 2021. But we'd have to go back until the third game of the prelims at Cup. But at this event, you guys, you know, let teams put some points up. I mean, you had to, right out the gate, you play Revo, and that was a war, and you guys won that 1-1. So just immediately, maybe give me your thoughts on the start of that event. Your first event with Dynasty, or, you know, back with Dynasty, but, you know, 10 years ago that you were on the team. So
right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The first event, or the first match was it was actually a tough game, and I now realize I made a mistake. They actually were winning with like 45 seconds left in the match, and we put up a quick point and then beat them in overtime. I believe that's or it might have been, we might have came back and put up a point right before to push to not go into overtime. I don't remember exactly, they were winning.
It was an overtime,
very little time left. Okay, right. So they were winning it with like 46 seconds or something like that. And, you know, again, obviously that's the first match, my first match with the team, and the point they ended up putting up to have that lead in that particular moment was a point where I was deep in their snake and guy made a good move on me and caught me slipping basically, which was, whatever, that happens sometimes. But yeah, it was a tougher match than probably we wanted it to be. But at the same time, we learned from it. And also at the same time, we found a way to take the punch and win still. And then we elevated and kept elevating and kept elevating. And that was the way I perceived the tournament, or my truth for the event was that we kept learning and we kept preparing and being ready for everything out there. And to me, it was no mistake why we won, because we did that better than every other team. We understood the field well. We understood what teams were trying to do. We understood how to punch, how to take a punch, and use the way that field was playing to our advantage and our skill set. And that's why we won, And also one of the big takeaways for me is it was my first tournament ever playing predominantly as a Snake One player. On Sunday, for sure, that's all I played. I didn't really play behind any. That was my position, and that was particularly kind of a cool way to do it. And also, again, like playing it in the way our game plan was meant to be played. And that's what was the beautiful thing about the way our team played, is that we managed what we were doing the best. And that's what ultimately it took to win the tournament.
Well, and that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you about it, because the nitty gritty on how the personnel was selected and who was going to play what position was a different look for Dynasty, which made you guys a little less scoutable. We had Alex Frazier on the D side. Blake almost cut his thumb off, so no Blake up the center. Ryan's now going to go back up the center. He's no stranger to that. He won the MVP there at this event. He also won the MVP at World Cup there. A lot of guys, obviously, any team that goes to the finals and wins the tournament is going to have a lot of guys in the running for MVP. You're playing Snake One. Marcelo also, it was, again, super versatile.
Lights out.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it was really cool. But that was, so, I mean, did you know kind of going into the tournament? I mean, when did it emerge that, okay, because a lot of people were wondering, okay, well, how is Archie what position is he going to play? You're very versatile. You've played a lot of different positions.
Yeah, that kind of your day. Honestly, I didn't know that was going to really play out that way until pretty much the finals, because it wasn't, again, we have a lot of guys that can do a lot of things, and it just kind of ended up working itself out that way, particularly on Sunday, because up through the tournament, I wasn't the only one doing that spot, but yeah, just kind of, that's how it fell into the way it played out. Marcelo was doing such a good job in that 2 role that it kind of gave me an opportunity to fill the other spot, and it was awesome. And that's what I did. I tried to do it to the best of my abilities and to the best understanding of all the circumstances and all the little details at play. And that's ultimately how it played out. But yeah, I mean, you got a team full of veterans and masters. So that's kind of the beauty of it, is that anybody can do everything at a very high level. And that's a really unique and special kind of group.
Absolutely. I mean, that's, again, you guys are on the precipice of 4 wins in a row here. So it's, it's like, the Dynasty is continuing to redefine what being paintball masters are. When we look at this 20 years, when we're singing this song, what tune are we going to be, going off of here? And it really is going to kind of, it's the song, the chapter has been turned for Dynasty about 1.5 years ago, and they're writing this brand new chapter of their very storied existence. So, and then another big was like, okay, what is Dynasty going to do against the Saints? So you guys draw them in the second game. It was, later on in the afternoon. It was the last set of the day. But honestly, you guys didn't really have too many problems beating the Saints in that first game. You had a little bit of a closer game in the finals. But also that wasn't really too much of an issue. Beat them by 3 in the finals, beat them by 4 in the prelims. Oh, I'm sorry, beat them by 5 in the prelims.
Yeah, I would argue that we handled them well, in the sense that, like, we played the way we needed to play to beat them, and that comes from a lot of understanding and really players being able to do what we think is best for a given situation, and I mean, again, they got second, we beat them twice, and pretty convincingly both games. I mean, those games were over well before the time was over. I tell you what, like that's in my opinion quite a statement. We came out of the hard bracket. We beat the second place team twice coming out of the hard bracket. And yeah, I mean, it just gives us a lot of really great momentum and spirit. And yeah, just teams have got to really be sound if they're gonna beat us.
So you guys finish out the prelims with a very close win over Energy Elite. Again, you guys had some battles. Again, the battle with Revo, the battle with Energy Elite, 1-point games, and then you guys beat X Factor by 4, so you handled them pretty easily. And then you go into Sunday and have 2 wars, again, wins by 1 point in against Damage and Aftermath, 4-3 games. What was the vibe on the team like on that Sunday morning? What were you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, the first game was Damage, and we were in the lead for the majority of the match, and it was kind of one of those ones where we're kind of playing with the lead and kind of letting that kind of dictate a little bit, and they ended up coming back a little bit, certainly more than we maybe wanted. But, we found the way to close it out. And certainly, like, that's the beauty of having those close matches, that you really do get to get into a better understanding of how the field plays out when you're in a tight match, in a grinder, if you will, going kind of back and forth a little bit. Even when you have a small lead, you almost want that pressure, because it really forms how you're going to continue to evolve the way you're playing, and so I would argue having those good close games throughout even in the prelims is good for you, so yeah, again, we took the punches, we learned a little bit more in each step of the way. And that's really the beauty of what happened that weekend, is that every game we took something away from it and elevated the way we were doing it out there. And same thing, even in the SDA game. I mean, obviously they were beating us up early, and we just kept plugging it into what we already knew. And all right, what are we going to do to come back and take this victory, right? And we didn't have any doubt as to what the end result of the game was. We just had a new set of circumstances and had to figure out what we're going to do. And thankfully we were able to put it out there and execute on what we wanted. And then came the finals. But I will say this, after we made it to the finals, like there's only one other time I've been so confident that we were going to win. There was zero doubt in my mind that it was over, because we knew what we were doing. We knew what Saints were going to try to do, and we were executing on all fronts, and we understood the field better than everybody at that point. It was no question at all. I knew for a fact. It wasn't even no doubt at all in my mind.
That was good. So
there's only one other tournament. I've played a tournament like that before.
What tournament was that?
It was a Chicago of 2019. We were playing. I did it actually. I said it in an interview too. Yeah, but it was like, there's no way. Period. It's over. We won. Yeah. But anyways, there's something kind of really uniquely special about having that level of faith.
Do you think that was that your confidence was equaled by your teammates in that moment? Do you think that everyone else on Dynasty at that moment was as confident as you were that this was your tournament to win?
Yeah, that's interesting, because like I don't like to put words in other people's mouths, and also I also understand that level of confidence is almost dangerous. It can be dangerous, because you still have to go out there and really perform. And that's why it's a weird level when that happens, or that ever comes up, that kind of thought. But yeah, I would probably say a couple of the guys were in that level of mindset. We've got this. We just need to go out there and do it. Yeah.
Last question for you before I let you go is that so you'd played the Saints already and you handled them pretty easily. Again, it was a 7-2 win, and that game was over pretty well before. I mean, you're not wrong when you say that game was over before the time was over. It really was. So then now you guys go play them again for the second time. Obviously, you have that innate confidence that does come by being a team already at an event. But what were you? Did they do anything different? I mean, as far as scouting them, or I mean, did they give you a steady dose of what you thought you were going to see out of that lineup, or was there any curveballs at all? Did you guys have to deal with any curveballs on the fly? Is what I'm saying. or was it just let's do what
You
we
know,
know what they're going to do, let's shut them down and do our thing?
yeah, I would argue that we had a pretty darn good understanding of what they wanted to do, and it makes sense. You want to do what's working, and also what um your guys are naturally good at. It just makes sense to do that, and that's again like my why wouldn't you want to do what your guys can do at a high level, right? But that's the beauty of like being able to respond so elegantly, right? Now that's what I would argue this streak on Dynasty is all about. It's really about being able to take any punch and find a way to still at the end of the day win, you know? And so, yeah, I don't think sure they could have maybe tried other stuff, but that would have put them honestly at even more of a disadvantage. It's like you don't want to have a team full of killers like that and then go and break soft and just try to play that ball with one of the most impressive teams ever. It just doesn't make sense. And there's no doubt in my mind, like if they would have tried to do that, that game would have been really boring for them. They at least gave it a shot and put some points up on the board, but like if they would have tried to play like a little softer game where they're not trying to really take punches, I don't know if that would have been much of a finals.
Yeah, I don't know if Brandon's obviously doing a really good job of getting that chip early on, but with the
100%
weapons, with the weapons he has, I really feel that has to be a team kind of like all the top teams that we've seen recently have to be playing on their toes, letting their weapons do what they do, going and earn that money. You're paying those guys for a reason. You're paying because they're insanely good paintball players, but mostly because they're really good offensive weapons. So you gotta let them be those players. So I think that, yeah, I mean, again, it's just I had to tip my hat in respect to Brandon Short and all the leadership of that squad and those guys for even making it to second place. Yeah, of course, that roster, it was almost expected, but still, we all know when you put a team together. I mean, just first of all, how hard it is to get to a finals number one, and then to have all those pieces come together as soon as they did and do as well as they did. That's mad respect.
No, it's definitely a statement, man. It's definitely a statement. That's not as easy as you'd think. And honestly, it would have been mind-boggling if they were able to pull it out and win. That would have been quite a story for sure. So
the very last question I will ask you, we don't need to go too deep on this, but just if you had to name one other team that you think is going to be, so again, with Dynasty the past year and a half, it had been X Factor. That was the rival, right? You guys in X Factor, it was, sad story for X Factor, 3 finals appearances and 3 losses and 3 wins for Dynasty, but that was the antagonist. That was the enemy. That was the rival. If you had to name one other team right now, just one, who do you think it will be the rival for Dynasty if you guys can continue this run?
Right. For me, this is a very easy question to answer. It's the Russians. I really believe they have the most to prove. They also haven't been there at all. And up until COVID, they really are. I mean, I would even argue currently are potentially the most dangerous team. And so, again, they're working pretty much harder than anybody else because that's their jobs. They're training every week. And they've got the staffing. They understand a very deep level of paintball, and they have the talent. So it's like kind of a deadly combo. I definitely think that team is poised to be really, really dominant this season. And that to me, if I was to say one team for sure, I look at that as being the team. Like certainly there's 9 other teams that can definitely do it no matter what. But if I look at one team that would give, let's just say, Dynasty the toughest run at this point for the rest of the season, I'd imagine it's the Russians.
Yeah, they're currently sitting in 8th place, but dude, I have to definitely agree with your logic here, because when you look at the starting roster and what they bring to the table, the fact that now that they lost to Level in the quarterfinals and they lost to Impact by 1 in their last game in the prelims, they're going to be, but just having finally got that, they had to jump through so many hoops to get that roster back together.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, but with starting on the D side, you got Karslev over there, you got Kirill, you got Sergey, and then you got
they're
Malloy,
all
you got
nasty, dude.
and they got Cozy Rev. I mean, that's a nasty. That's a legit roster right there. So,
Yeah.
again, I can't.
The thing that I think is most impressive about that team though is because they play so much and they really do understand the game so well that they do more out there tactically than any other team, period. It's really not even close. They do so much that it's kind of hard to keep track of it all, and that's what's really dangerous about them. They can really win everywhere, all over the field in a weird way that you're not used to seeing. And that's kind of what, has propelled them deep into Sundays as they do stuff on Sunday. We're like, whoa, nobody's done that at all the entire event yet, and they not only do they do it, but they do it at a high level, and they understand, even though they haven't shown it yet, but they understand the way each of those plays breaks down, and they use that to their favor. Right. So it's really, their program is so fascinating to me because like, I imagine that their type of program is the program that can be built if you put like no limit on the amount of effort involved, right? But that's also kind of what's beautiful about professional paintball is there is a limit for most teams as to how much effort they can put into it, right? And so like for the most part, every team is at their maximum effort allowable, for their team. And that's kind of some teams are able to put more effort and some teams aren't, or some teams are able to put more money into it, which can buy you some effort and some talent, and that's what's kind of interesting is that the bar is not equal for every team. And so it's just, that's a part of what makes it interesting,
Yeah, absolutely. And they're going to be a massive threat. Well, Archie, thank you so much. Where can everyone go to get ready for this project drop?
Oh yeah, for sure. So we have an Instagram page. It's project__PB. And then we also have a Facebook page, which is, I think it's just Project Paintball. You can check out, we're basically going to be dropping all the information on there. That's really the place to be in the know. And for those of you that aren't quite that aware, like our stuff sells out in a minute, period, everything. So if you're actually serious, you figure out when that drop time is and be ready. And that's a fact. I mean, it still is mind boggling to me, but some of these things will sell out in like 8, 9, 10 seconds, and that's not even not an exaggeration at all. And these guns really aren't going to be any different. So if you really want one, that's just how you get them. Otherwise they'll be worth more. I mean, people are selling them for more after the fact. So it's kind of up to you, but just be mindful of the drop times. Stay tuned on our stuff, put on your notifications for when we post, and just set the alarms because that's what it takes to get some of our stuff. So
Archie, again, dude, you're a legend. Blessing to the game. Really appreciate all of your time. And can't wait to see, can Dynasty do it? Can they set some history in the books? Can they do 4 wins in a row? Well, we're going to be finding out April 29th to May 1st. It's going to be the Lone Star Open, the next NXL event. It's going to be super fun to watch. Again, we're going to be keeping you guys updated with shows on the lead up to that, trying to get all the boys from Columbus Level on next week, maybe a week after that, depending, because we're going to try to get a bunch of that crew here into one show. And then, we got the streamer showcase coming up. Also, if you guys just got into paintball and you're wondering how last year went down, check out 4 Sundays. 4 episodes are up right now. You can go back and check out that crazy story because it was a crazy year last year, and this year is also shaping up to be madness as well too. Archie, best of luck in the future. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone out there. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Thank you, guys.
To what would you give each moment in a day if you knew that you only get 4 unique and different days to shine? It is such an arbitrary number, 4, to be sure. But the parameters are set. You know the day of your execution or of your deliverance. This is a trial by combat. It's a day to define you, a day to test you, a day where all the torturous hours of training come together, where it's you, your gun, your preparation, your teammates, and your tenacity on display, dissected by your enemies with your skill, your will to win, weighed and measured. It is your chance to prove to the world that in this small slice of place and time, that you above all others are to be remembered, to be respected. In the sport of paintball, it will come down to Sunday, the holy day, where you get to earn your place in the game. And in 2021, you get 4 of these. So this is the story of many moments, but of 1 year of what happens on 4 Sundays.
Hard, they have to, they know it, right? Smart fucking paintball.
Malice is just saving the day again, and Malice gets the crossfield shot as well.
Guys couldn't make the corner like I was as consistent.
They get Konstantin Fedorov back. They have Todd Martinez as the coach. Randy Smith is intent on building a championship team.
I got the chills, and I was like, we're going to win this tournament.
Pressure's all on them because they're number 1 team. We're the 20th place team.
Level undefeated, the number 1 seed in their division.
They have everything to lose, and we have nothing to lose.
No one can touch Dynasty here. That was a complete masterclass.
You go to bed dreaming you get to play Impact on Sunday and send them home. Then you dream you get to play Houston Heat. Who's the other Titan? Dynasty. There's no better feeling than going up against the big Titans.